Does your factory S10 steering shaft look like this one? Worn out, nearly 30 years old, starting to rust, falling apart even? Well, we have a solution for you. And in this video, we'll be covering that topic and we'll be upgrading that with this new piece from Hooker Blackheart. Welcome to 304 Customs Garage. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the steering shaft for this S10 build. As you can see, I have the fender well headers on here as well, and I wanted to see how it fit up on here and see if my theory was correct in our purchase. So we're going to take a look at that later in the video. Later on, we'll also give you a little channel update since I haven't posted anything for a while, just to let you know what to expect in the future, where we're going with the channel, and what we have left to do on this beast so we can get it on the road and hopefully take it for a drive this spring. Part number for the shaft that we will be using in this video will be, you want to look at that? Sure. For Blackheart. So, we're not going to look at the surface rust on these. These are going to get taken care of soon. Let's go over here and take a look at this steering shaft. So this piece in front of us here is what we're going to be replacing our stock steering shaft with. This is a Hooker Blackheart steering shaft from Holley. And basically the only thing you get is what you see in front of you here. And of course some instructions. Just basically states that you need to use some grease maybe, some Loctite on the nuts. And then also on the part that goes onto the steering box itself down here on the end, this is actually like a little set screw, and it suggests that you make a flat spot on the gear on the steering box for this to be set onto when you get it. This does look like a very nice piece. It's staked also. There's like a little universal type joint in here. So I think this will be nice, and it should give us some more clearance up here for the headers. We'll take a look at that here in a second. But first, I want to show you the difference between this one and also the factory one that we're replacing this with. Okay, so here's our new piece, and then here's the factory steering shaft that came off the S10. A couple differences. Intended purpose is the same. Upgraded piece should fit nicely. Of course, you do see you don't have this big bulky piece here down by the gearbox. And also, I believe it gets rid of this big thing up here. As you see on this one, it does not have that on there. And this is definitely worn out. It's got like a little clicking noise to it. Probably need to replace it anyway. So we got that under control. Still bolt to the top. On the bottom piece, however, there's a bolt on the factory one that goes all the way through the steering gear on the steering box. And on the new one, of course, as I mentioned, you're going to be making a flat spot on your steering box gear for the set screw that goes into it, because it does not go all the way through as the factory one does. This should give us some more clearance around down there by the steering box. And then also up here, it should give us a lot more clearance without having this metal piece on there around the header tube and also for that rear spark plug. So we're going to take these over and we'll show you the difference, and we'll put this new one on. Take a look at the difference in that as well. Okay, for a visual reference, I went ahead and put the factory steering shaft slightly back on the steering column piece, and then I didn't even connect it to the gearbox piece. I just set it on top of there. But as you can see how that header tube is made in the back, this metal piece here would be really close to that header tube, and that's the original reason I bought that Blackheart Hooker steering shaft for this truck, is because I wasn't sure if it was going to be an issue with these fender well headers and rubbing or anything like that. So we have the new piece. I think you could actually probably run this piece if you put it on there fully, but it's probably worn out. Like I said, it makes a little clicking noise anyway, so we're going to go ahead and replace it. Just wanted to give you a quick reference of what it looks like there. And then of course we got these headers on here currently because we're getting ready to finish the exhaust to run another truck, so I can send these out to get coated so they don't have rust on them like that. Anyway, let's grab the new piece, take a look at that, and see how much more clearance we gain. Okay, so here's the Hooker Blackheart piece. As you see, I think it looks nice in there for now. My theory is confirmed. Look how much more space is back there now compared to the factory steering shaft with that big metal piece and joint that's back there that goes onto the steering column. There's actually 2 connection points up here as well. I failed to mention that earlier. You're going to have your bolt that goes through the steering column piece, and then there's also a set screw on the top like there is here at this bottom piece here. Now, there is some flat spots up here, so maybe you can use those on there. I just slipped it on there for now. But we'll get to that once we get these headers coated and put back on. When we get this piece in here. So that's an added bonus into that. And the most important thing about this steering shaft is that it's supposed to help clean up the play in the steering, which I feel on a project like this is very important to have good handling capabilities with the power that it's going to be putting out. Of course, it's not a super high horsepower build, but more than this truck was ever intended to make. So if you have questions about this, I'll try to answer them. These aren't the cheapest, and I believe for S10s, a lot of people use like a Jeep Cherokee shaft, steering shaft. I just went ahead and bought this one. You could probably make that one work. I don't know anything about that one, but it seems to be, according to a Facebook group that I'm in, that's a pretty popular modification as well. There's probably some YouTube videos about it also. Like I said, if you have any questions about this particular one, let me know, and I'll try to answer your questions. So let's take a look here. I'll get set up and I'll show you what it looks like with the fender well headers on there before we take off for the end of the video. So we'll be right back. So there wasn't a lot to talk about with the steering shaft since we're not technically ready for that yet. We still have a lot of work to go before we get the steering shaft installed permanently. Some of the things that are upcoming on this channel will be headers. We'll be modifying the collectors on these Hedman fender well headers, and we'll be running the exhaust under the truck and then back to the rear with some mufflers and X-pipe, potentially cutouts. We'll get to that in another video. We'll also be touching base potentially on some wiring again, and what we're going to be hooking those up to and getting everything squared away for that. We have interior things to do. Maybe modifying the brake stuff again. Haven't sold myself on that idea yet without trying it. If you watch the previous video, you'll see I did touch base on that and why I think I might need to change it. And then we also might be changing a little bit about the front suspension some more too. We'll touch base on that in another video. As far as underneath the truck, there's really not much left to do besides exhaust, drive shaft, and drive shaft loop, which we'll be installing. Connecting it to the rear, that's something else we got to do. And aside from that, I have a whole list of other little odds and ends besides body work. Get this thing ready for primer and paint, and then we're going to start working on the interior and getting it tidied up, and hopefully some parts that we need still will be in stock by the time we get around to it. We can get them in, get this thing ready for the spring, get it on its maiden voyage. I did want to thank everyone for subscribing to the channel. If you haven't, please consider doing so. Give us the thumbs up and check out one of these other videos, previous channel, see how we got this far. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.